Hey guys, congrats on the amazing results. I think you guys are at a really monumental point right now, especially considering you guys have been exercising this strategy since 2020. The performance has been in excess of that of NVIDIA, and you've become of a size that it's near impossible for people on Wall Street to really kind of ignore where you're at right now and what you're doing. And if I was just going to try to like capture what that is, it's you're arbitraging the difference between Bitcoin's annualized, return of call it 45% versus the 10% that you're paying out in the preferred market for a 35% delta. Michael, you just mentioned that one of your biggest challenges is the education side with institutional investors. And I think from the outsider's perspective, they're looking at what you're doing and they're looking at all this preferred issuance and they're saying, oh my God, there's so much perpetual drag that's going to be on this company that's going to bog it down. If Bitcoin goes down 50%, it's going to have all these types of issues, which by the math is, just not true. But what are the steps that you're taking to kind of overcome this education burden that continues to persist and continues to be a problem in the Bitcoin space in general? Yeah, that's all I got.
Pong, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, I'll start with, Andrew mentioned it, in January this year, we started working on strike and we had to educate every investment banker and every convertible note banker and every preferred banker. And it was like a knockdown, drag out 2-month process, all of our accountants, all of our attorneys. And then we issue stretch 6 months later in about 2 weeks and everybody gets it. And that's the process. That's the process to educate people and we're going to go out there. Mike is very well known for all the podcasts he does, right? I'm becoming more public. All of you are doing an amazing job out there. It's a process, but the more people figure out, the faster it goes. And, most like we're selling preferreds now to people who've never even heard of a preferred. Right. And we sold almost $600 million of preferreds to retail investors who just see a 9% dividend yield, twice as much as what a money market gives you, 10x over, more than 10x over collateralized. And they're like, oh, and it's overnight money. So I'm going to take the money that I was going to use to send my kids to college 6 months from now or whatever it is. I'm going to put it in there.
I'd like you to reach out to me. I'd like to help in this endeavor. I can bring it to a whole new audience.
Will start to sell themselves, but
DM me through X, please. Thank you. We have the official MicroStrategy software channel watching our show
everybody's
tonight.
Doing this is how the word gets out. It's viral. And that's why we're doing this investor relations, digitally transforming investor relations. That's why we have you all here. People will learn. The great thing is good products, great products. It's not much different than the iPhone. Right, a great product when someone first looks at it may not realize how great it is. 2 months later, it sells itself by word of mouth. And I think people will get educated. And bankers are making fees. We're the largest IPO this year. Guess who makes money off of IPOs? Bankers. Guess what bankers like? Making money. So they figure this out pretty quickly, right? So I do think the market will figure this out. And I think it starts with us. It starts with you. Becomes the banking community, the retail community.
I think if I could add to that, yeah, I think the product is important. To Fong's point, it's not just we're selling preferred stocks to people that never heard of a preferred. We're selling a Bitcoin-backed preferred to people that have never heard of Bitcoin, that don't even know what Bitcoin is. And we're even selling it to people that are afraid of Bitcoin. So, but if you walk down the street and you say, would you like a high yield bank account that pays double what your bank is currently paying? The answer is going to be 99% yes. The only question is, do I trust you, right? Do I like you? The car flies, and it's a electro hover car and it flies. Do you want one? Well, if my neighbor's got one and it looks safe, then of course I want one. So what we found is the key is to package the product, and then we've got to build a distribution channel with the banks, and then we've got to build digital education. So you can't knock on doors; you got to actually upload content. So we've taken to now we upload video content directly to hundreds of thousands of people, which is another thing, and conferences, right? These Bitcoin treasury company conferences. One part of education is helping companies become Bitcoin treasury companies and figure out what it means to capitalize on Bitcoin and how to issue BTC-backed credit. Another marketing strategy and education strategy, Preston, would be, outreach to the credit rating agencies and the creation of credit models. And what I just covered here in my voluminous comments, which took too long, was I talked about an equity model, right? I laid out, an equity model. How do you create leverage and an MNAV of 2, 3, 4, 5? And then I also lay out a credit model rooted in statistics. And then we share that with the world. We open source it. And so I think that's part of it. And then I think the other part of it is the outreach to investors. And that means going to a lot of investment conferences and uploading a lot of investor content. And you can see an evolution in our presentations like the one today. We're spending a lot of time identifying the total addressable market for short 1-month duration credit investors versus high yield 5-year duration credit investors. And so we start thinking about that, and we've broken down, the markets in Japan, the markets all across Europe, the markets in the US. And to Andrew's point, the question is, do we want to sell, a particular instrument in 6 different currencies? Do we want to sell the same instrument but at 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year tenors? Do we want to package a convertible instrument? And it all comes down to understanding the customer. It turns out that the investors are all different, and they're different everywhere, and there's many, many channels to reach them. So I don't think there's one answer, but I think that the success of Bitcoin is getting people's attention. And I think that when you give them a compelling product they want, that gets their attention. And then pretty soon you get like the money magazines and the financial reporters of the world. They're, if Wall Street Journal is going to write an article about high yield bank accounts that give you 380 basis points, then presumably at some point the Wall Street Journal will write about, stretch type securities that give you 900 basis points. And I think that we got to let the market do its thing.
Phong, you should go on Preston's pod.
Thank you for your answer.